Ever since junior high school, I've been having the same dream. In the dream, I see my girlfriend from junior high, but the timing of it is always strange. It's always when something bad happens in real life. When things are bad at home, when someone gets sick or hospitalized. Always during these times, I dream of her. Then, after I dream of her, things always start to get better. In the dream, she's always smiling at me and says, "It'll be okay." But the problem is that recently, I had another dream about her. Only this time, she died. Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to another episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. On this week's episode, we're going to be looking at a few stories that relate to monkey dream. This story can be found in Kowabana Origins, and was also featured as a bonus episode on Patreon, if you want to know more, but at its most basic, it's a story about a dream train that kills at each stop in increasingly gruesome ways. You can check out the book or Patreon if you want the full story, but it's not necessary to understand this week's stories at all. As we often see with popular English stories like Slender Man, bandwagoning is quite common in Japan as well, and these stories put their own spin on the dream that can kill you. Our first tale for this week is called Monkey Dream Plus. You've heard of the story called Monkey Dream, right? People who happen to be riding on a certain train end up being killed in order in particular ways. You can look it up quite easily if you haven't read it yet. It's one of the most popular stories from Nii-chan. So, about this monkey dream. It's common for stories like this to read comments from people who have suffered the same fate as the original poster, but I didn't see any like that. It was easy to read, so I scanned through it pretty quickly. But that was my first mistake. About 4 days after reading it, I had a terrifying dream that was a continuation of the original. A rehash can never be better than the original. I know that well, but let me tell you about what happened in my dream. In the dream, I was on the roller coaster at a theme park in Nagoya City. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was a ride for kids that slowly went around one section of the park. I went there when I was small, so I don't remember the details very well, but I think the ride was about 5 minutes long. There was a small tunnel just before you exit, and I remember coming out the other side and seeing my father standing there with a camera. Next to him, my mother was smiling and waving. This was before my father started to act abusive, so it's one of my happiest and most precious memories. Back in the dream, I was sitting in the front seat of the roller coaster. Next to me was my younger sister when she was a child. At the time, I was looking up at her, but in the dream, I was my normal 20-year-old adult self. We didn't even look like siblings separated by age. We looked like a father and child. But I tried to enjoy the nostalgia of the dream nevertheless. We drove around the course slowly, and finally approached the tunnel. Once we're through here, I'll be able to see my gentle father again, I thought. But once we were on the other side, it was no longer the park. The roller coaster changed into a train, and I was sitting in car 5. My sister was gone. The door connecting to car 4, the smoking car, opened, and I could smell smoke. I often used the bullet train for work, so that's probably how it connected in my dream. Familiar scenery passed by outside the train windows, but the one thing that was different to reality was how quiet it was. Not only that, but the 2- and 3-seater chairs were, for the most part, empty. There was only one person seated in the window seat of each row, and everyone's complexions were awful. How strange, I thought, and next thing I knew, I was pulling my MD player out of my bag and listening to my favorite song. Then the bullet train started to slow down. That's odd. It's too soon to be arriving in Kyoto. Is it stopping at Gifu Hashima Station today? I thought. I took my headphones out to hear the station name, but I was too late and couldn't catch it. The train stopped at an unknown station, and a scream ripped through the silent train car. It sounded like it was coming from the rear. Despite how awful it was, not a single person reacted to it. Did something happen? But I couldn't see all the way back there. Not a single person got off the train, and then it slowly started moving again. Not even 5 minutes had passed before it slowed again. I was able to hear the name of the next station. Hoisting. The train stopped at another unknown station, and again I heard a scream. I panicked and looked towards the rear of the car. A middle-aged woman was being hoisted in the air. I couldn't see very well, but there was a rope around her neck, and her hands were clawing at it. The sound of her feet kicking the seat and walls echoed throughout the car. I finally realized just what this dream was. It was, I dare say, the monkey dream. I had to wake up as soon as possible, but I wasn't the type of person who could wake up at will, so I was forced to continue the dream a little longer. The first thing I needed to know was how many people had been killed and what number I was. The last quarter of the car I was in, car 5, appeared empty, but it was possible that those people had already been killed by the monkey dream's live carving and scooping out. I was sitting in the 6th seat from the front. It was a little too soon for it to be my turn, but I had to wake up at once. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't do it. I heard screams behind me, over and over. Then I saw the usual snack woman, a smile on her face, as she pushed the snack cart down the aisle. Only, it wasn't snacks on her cart. It was human organs. I can't do this anymore. I gotta wake up. Come on, wake up, wake up. I looked back to confirm when my turn was. Several people behind me had disappeared, and their seats were gone too. I was supposed to be 6th from the front, but suddenly I was in the middle. The businessman sitting behind me saw me panicking and started to speak. If you wake up, your seat disappears too. You should wake yourself up soon as well. It'll be your turn before you know it. I saw blood splattered on the 7th chair behind mine. It was okay. There were 6 more people before me. I just had to wake up, and then hope I never had this dream again. We approached the next station. Skewering. Something disastrous happened. I thought there were 6 more people until my turn, but at the next station, 5 of them were skewered to death at once. Next was the businessman behind me, but he started to speak to me calmly through the chair. I don't need to wake up anymore. My company's going through a restructuring, and my wife, well... Trembling, I woke up while he was still talking. I was drenched in sweat. The dream was so long, but when I looked at the clock, only 20 minutes had passed. That monkey dream. Its impact was so large that it probably caused me to have that dream. That story itself is a straight ticket to the train. At any rate, I never want to have that dream again. Honestly, I was so scared that I thought I would have a heart attack and die. This next story takes the action away from a train and instead places the protagonist in his childhood school. Yet the rules remain the same. Die in your dream, and you die in the real world as well. This one's called Crunch Crunch. The other day I had a terrible dream. I decided to write about it because I wanted others to hear it, and when I was looking at old stories, I saw one called Monkey Dream that sounded awfully similar to my dream. When I read it, I was shocked, and I hesitated over whether to post my own story or not. But it's not a copy of that one, so please hear me out. I was at school, my junior high. I graduated from there quite a while ago. But I realized it was a dream when I noticed how quiet the building was. And more than that, I had no reason to be there in the first place. It was a little weird, but as I walked down the creaking green hallway to the classroom, I was filled with nostalgia. I looked around for a while, and then my eyes were drawn to the toilet down the end of the hall. Ha, that takes me back. I had a lot of stomach troubles in junior high school, so I spent a lot of time in that toilet during class. It might sound strange, but the toilet and I were like close friends. The door squeaked as I opened it, and I stepped inside. It was dirty, as usual. I stepped into one of the stalls. It was like I was being unconsciously swept inside. I plopped onto the seat. Why am I doing this? For the first time, I noticed how strange I was acting. That's right. Why on earth was I going to the toilet in my dream? Seeds of doubt and fear began to grow. What the hell? Why am I in the toilet? Panic started to creep in, and I looked around. I heard a sound from my jacket pocket and reached in to pull whatever it was out. It was a scrunched up piece of paper. I opened it and saw my own letters staring back at me. Crunch, 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 crunch. Crunch, crunch? It made no sense. I had messy writing, but the letters before me were awful, like they were written in panicked haste. I tilted my head, confused. Then I heard a sound from the end stall. I swallowed nervously. I thought I was the only person there. The sound continued intermittently. I leaned in closer. Crunch, 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 crunch. I thought my heart was going to claw its way out of my throat. Crunch, crunch. That was what was written on the piece of paper. But I had no idea what was making the sound. All I could tell was that it sounded heavy, not light. I wanted to run, but I decided to climb up and peep over the top of the stalls to see what it was. Of course, I did my best not to make a single sound. I saw it. I couldn't see perfectly from where I was, but the source of the sound was human. It was a girl with black hair in a bob cut. That's right. She was the spitting image of Hanako-san from the toilet. I couldn't see past her hair to see what she was doing, but her head was moving up and down, and I could hear that crunch, crunch sound from before. Surprising even myself, I leaned forward to get closer. She looked up and saw me. The girl was chewing on a freshly severed human head. I screamed. I had to get out of there. She was going to kill me. I kicked the toilet door open and flew out. My feet got tangled up and I crashed into the urinals, but there was no time to stop. I turned around and saw the door at the end stall slowly opening. Shit, 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 shit. I sprinted as fast as my feet would take me towards the stairs. I knew exactly where I was. I was on the 3rd floor. I ran down the stairs 3 and 4 steps at a time, and I soon hit the 1st floor. Then, I saw something even more strange. There was a boy standing by the shoe boxes with no leg. Next to him was a girl in Japanese-style clothing. But they weren't alone. There were other yokai-like creatures there as well. Evil-looking things. But they looked at me curiously. They didn't attack and made no sign of animosity towards me. But I had no time to be relieved and jumped towards the door that would lead me to the safety of outside. It was locked and wouldn't open. I tried the 2nd door and the 3rd door, but they were also locked. The 4th door was no different, but this one was locked from the inside. All I had to do was turn it, and I would be free. I opened it, kicked the door wide open, and threw myself outside. I did it! I'm safe! I'm safe? It felt strange to say the words myself. Why did I feel the need to declare that I was safe just by stepping outside? Then I remembered. I've had this dream before. That's right. I'd had this same dream once before. I wrote that crunch crunch message to myself last time in the dream as well. Just to the right of the door was a fence with a section cut out like a door. Last time I had the dream, I woke up once I exited that door. I knew my goal was close, so that was why I was able to say that I was safe. Even if the cruncher came running after me, I was confident I could reach the door before she could reach me. I looked over at it and fell speechless. When I was at school, the door was always left open, but now it was closed. And not only was it closed, but it was padlocked as well. You're kidding me. It can't be. Quit screwing around. I had entirely forgotten. Schools these days were getting more dangerous, and after school hours, all the gates and doors were closed. The last time I had the dream, such rules weren't in effect, and that was why it was open. I didn't know what to do. I looked up at the sky, and I saw someone looking down at me from the toilet window. I locked eyes with the cruncher. I broke out in goosebumps. It was like every hair on my body stood on end. A chill ran down my spine, and the temperature around me suddenly dropped. I gotta get out of here. I ran. I just wanted to get away from that thing. Then I remembered. There was a gate for the lunch truck to enter. It wasn't very big, so I should be able to jump over it. I ran as fast as I could towards it. I couldn't turn around to check, but I somehow knew that the cruncher wasn't too far behind me. She was faster than me. She was so fast that she'd easily catch up to me in less than 50 meters. I lost all sensation. I just ran. I saw the gate in front of me and threw myself upon it. I rolled over and hit the ground on the other side. I'm safe. This time, I'm safe. There was no reason for me to think so, but that was what I thought. I was filled with relief. I looked back at the school. I wanted to see just how close the cruncher was. The moment I looked back, my blood froze. She was right there, right in front of my nose. She reached out with both hands, like she was about to grab my head. Then, she spoke. Huh. I thought I'd catch you this time. Then I woke up. I was dizzy and drenched in sweat. I wanted to write down everything that happened in the dream so I wouldn't forget it. It was so terrifying that I wanted to tell someone, anyone, about it later. But I rarely used my notebook, so I had trouble finding it. I eventually found my old notebook hidden deep in the back of my bookcase, and when I opened it, I was at a loss for words. Crunch, 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 crunch. The word was written all over the last page. I was so scared I couldn't move. I had almost no memory of the first time I had that dream, but it felt like I escaped easily. The second time was just like I explained. But the third time, the next time, just thinking about it sent shivers down my spine. Honestly, I'm not that sure that I'll be able to escape the next time. If you come across an article in the newspaper one day that says, "Man died in his sleep," then there's a good chance that article will be talking about me. Although, I sure hope not. Our last story for this week is a reminder that danger doesn't always lie in dreams. And in fact, sometimes they can even save you. This one's called There's room for one more. In my dream, I was walking when a horse-drawn cart pulled up behind me. I was tired, so I was going to ask for a ride when I noticed it was already full. Everyone in the carriage looked at me. Their faces were grey and expressionless, like zombies. Only one of them smiled at me and said, "There's room for one more." I refused. Then I woke up. That day, I had some business at the building by the station, so I went out. I needed to go to the top floor, so I pressed the button and waited for the elevator. It arrived from the basement, but when the doors opened, it was already full. Everyone inside was expressionless and looked at me. Only one person smiled and said, "There's room for one more." I didn't get on. About 10 seconds later, the wire broke and the elevator fell to the bottom floor. The news probably mentioned how many people died, but I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's stories, and don't forget, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Tara A. Devlin. You can also join our Patreon for early access and exclusive bonus episodes at patreon.com/Tara A. Devlin. Kage, my newest Japanese horror novel, is also available on Amazon right now. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you can head over to Kowabana.net to find all those links. Thanks guys, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to Kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to Kowabana.net now.